Hello, welcome to the Katy Sissine Show, addressing the indoctrination of the American nation. It's week 2, and if you tuned in with me last week, you saw that I gave a little bit of my background. We talked about my experience studying political sciences and the Model United Nations, living in a socialized country in Spain, and things I had realized from that. And this week, we will be discussing whistleblowers. This is the week of the whistleblowers. We're going to start out with Mr. Edward Snowden and talk a little bit about Chelsea Manning and Andrew Breitbart. And first off, I'd like to tell y'all about a trip that BKP and I took to the Capitol last week. We were under the Gold Dome. We got to go to a pre-legislative press conference and listen to House Speaker David Ralston. We also spoke with Representative of District 9, Kevin Tanner, and Representative of District 29, Josh McCoon. We got a very nice interview from Josh McCoon also. So let's get right into it. You see the background is the Hollywood movie Snowden that was recreated this year, starring Joseph Gordon-Levitt. And it's a little bit fabricated of the real story of Snowden, of course, but what isn't? So who is Mr. Edward Snowden? That's the first question. Edward Snowden is 33 years old, and you can follow him on Twitter at Snowden, S-N-O-D-E-N. He is known as an NSA whistleblower, and he is now considered a fugitive on the run. In the past, he worked for Dell, the CIA, and he was a former contractor for the U.S. government. And if we could pull up that background photo of Snowden, the real Snowden, and we can let our viewers see the real Snowden. So the reason for, he is the reason for the most massive intelligence manhunt. And he has tainted the reputation of the U.S. intelligence community. And I believe that is why the U.S. Doesn't want him back here, because he has revealed the methods of which we gather information in the NSA. And there's Mr. Snowden for you right there. Snowden, traitor or, what does it say here? Traitor or patriot? Yes, mostly we see traitor or hero, traitor or patriot. The choice is yours. No politician can determine that for you, and we're going to go over various politicians and their opinion of Snowden. First, I want to give a good review on the situation that took place that created this whole question. Is he a patriot, or is he a hero? Is he a traitor? Is he a hero or a traitor? There's a great quote by Snowden reflecting on his he's now attaining asylum in Russia, and currently as we speak. And he said, anybody who ever embarrassed a great power is never going to be safe. I mean, as long as people feel a sense of retaliation, as long as people feel like they have to send messages and set examples not to mess with us, as in the dissenters, are going to be at risk. So he's basically saying that anyone who speaks out against the main authority, and in this situation, it's the U.S. government that we're talking about, they are highly at risk. These dissenters of the U.S. government authority are highly at risk. So, as I've stated, Snowden now resides in Russia in temporary asylum for a U.S. indictment for espionage charges, charged under, of course, the Espionage Act. So what did Snowden do? Snowden revealed it's estimated over 1.5 million documents, classified documents of the Stellar Wind program, an NSA surveillance program. And what this revealed was the NSA was committing violations of our constitutional rights that the federal courts have deemed unconstitutional. He committed violations, the NSA committed violations of the First, Fourth, and Fifth Amendments, freedom of speech, freedom of association, and freedom from unreasonable search and seizure. And this is the search and seizure of your information and of my information, and actually of citizens around the world, global citizens, not just of the USA. The Stellar Wind program could collect data, was collecting data from all around the world. And it was all under the pretext of protection against terrorism. So the Stellar Wind program essentially permitted the search of any individual's communications for the purpose of security against terrorism, which gave them the rights to wiretap anyone without their consent. So how did Snowden go about? We know who he is. We know what he did. Now we need to know, the question is, how? How did Snowden go about this whole operation of exposing these documents? He was then 29, an analyst for the NSA, and he decided to fly to Hong Kong in May, and he met journalists from The Guardian there at a hotel in Hong Kong in June. He met Glenn Greenwald, Laura Poitras, and Ewan McAskill, all journalists, and I believe they're from The Guardian. He remained anonymous upon meeting the journalist because he didn't know what he was getting into, and neither did they. For all they knew, they were both being set up, but everyone took a chance in the name of justice. So they claim that's what they stand for. And I'm not going to side with either because it's still not determined in the USA, his fate. So I'd like to keep that open-ended and just talk about the facts here. Snowden and journalists met at the hotel and identified Snowden, as you may have seen in the popular Hollywood movie, by him holding a Rubik's Cube, I suppose in the lobby, and then proceeded to follow him up to his hotel room, which he barricaded with pillows, and so no one could listen in. And he was very, very very cautious about how he went about the operations, of course. And after he revealed this information to the journalists, these leaked documents of this surveillance program, Stellar Wind, there was the location of the hotel revealed. And I'm not sure if he did that on purpose or if it was revealed by someone else, but it seems as if he did reveal his location on purpose. And he then fled the hotel after revealing the location of the hotel through a photo of the view out of the hotel window where he met the journalist. And he fled to an apartment with local supporters. And there was a huge protest during this time of this whole issue with Snowden. Is he a hero or is he a traitor? The people in Hong Kong went to the American consulate or the U.S. consulate in Hong Kong and protested for the freedom of Snowden. And we'll check out a video of that in just a few. There's some other great quotes of Snowden on the U.S. government. He stated, "We are increasingly making decisions that departed from the rule of law." And that's what led him to leak these documents. He also said, "How can someone justify the violation of the rights of an entire nation without even a law to lean on? ... The most senior officials in a democracy are acting against the interest of the public in secret. I did not intend to get out of this, as in Hong Kong, safely." Snowden knew exactly what he was getting into. And he truly believes that these operations by the NSA and as ruled by the U.S. court system were illegal. Stellar Wind was illegal. So the U.S. government was mad at Snowden, and he was wanted for federal charges under espionage and terrorism. So what was he to do? He had to reach out to someone for help, and the only thing that came to his mind, of course, or the first thing that came to his mind, I'm sure, was WikiLeaks, known for reporting anonymous real news. So he had hoped, WikiLeaks has diplomats, they have attorneys, he had hoped WikiLeaks was a match against the NSA. The US government versus WikiLeaks, you never know. WikiLeaks began to protect communications through encryption due to years of US surveillance of the site, and Snowden also believed this was necessary. And the people seemed to be on Snowden's side when this whole situation was occurring. If we could check out, we've got a video of protests in Hong Kong, and that we'll check out a little bit later in the second segment. And in Hong Kong, it was up to, so the U.S. knew that Snowden was in Hong Kong, that was revealed, and it was up to Hong Kong to act. Hong Kong did not immediately arrest Snowden as desired by the US authorities. In fact, they did the exact opposite. They let the clock run by delaying actions until formal paperwork was transferred to Hong Kong regarding Snowden. WikiLeaks was looking for places where Snowden could seek asylum from the US government. Requests for extradition arrived in Hong Kong from the US on a Friday night. So it was unclear, and Snowden knew this, as to whether he needed to wait until Monday to act or to act immediately upon fleeing his location in Hong Kong. And upon receiving this information, he decided it was time to leave. Although he was reluctant due to the risk of being held by Border Patrol, upon checking his passport and identification, as we know, the US can cancel your passport. Hong Kong replied to the US government and stated that the matter of Snowden and them taking in Snowden and transferring him to the US was a matter under review, and they claimed it's because there was a mistake in the American paperwork. The American paperwork got Snowden's middle name wrong. They called him James, but his middle name is actually Joseph. So Hong Kong claimed that due to this mistake on American paperwork, they did not deliberately hold up the investigation. The delay was actually due to the US's error in the name sent over from the US. So Hong Kong allowed the fugitive Snowden to leave its borders. And his destination was predicted as Moscow. So we're going to look into that here in just a few minutes. And I wanted to talk about whistleblowers because it's up to us as the Republic, as the people of the Republic, to determine whether these whistleblowers are traitors or heroes. And our politicians should listen to our opinions on these matters. It should not be their sole decisions. It's up to us as the people to express our opinions, just as they did in Hong Kong, which we'll take a look at here in the next half of the segment. And I want to remind you, thank you for tuning in to the Katy Sissine Show. You can follow me at Katy, FYNTV.
Looking for in a vehicle? Start your search at Schottenkirk Ford Jasper. We've simplified the process so you can move on to what matters, your family.
This is the big one, the 20% off MSRP model year-end clearance at Days Chevrolet in Jasper, with huge savings over $3,600 off the redesigned Malibu. Now just $20,400. Save over $8,600 off Silverado Crew Cab LT. Now just $33,500. 20% off new Chevys. Right here, right now, at Days Chevrolet in Jasper.
Better days ahead, Days Chevrolet.
Find new roads.
El Rey and Ellijay.
El Rey Mexican Restaurant.
Family owned and operated, and a local favorite for families, parties, and meetings.
Great prices.
Friendly service and delicious Mexican cuisine.
Patio dining available.
Come sing in Carlos's Cantina every Friday 9 to 1.
Eat in or take away.
Same location for 14 years. Open 7 days at the corner of Maddox Drive and 515. North Georgia's favorite Mexican cuisine. El Rey and Ellijay.
Pizza Hut makes the best pizza in the entire universe, but they won't tell you that. I've been marooned on this planet for a while now. You are an impressive race. Your children know excellent hiding places. Your oceans aren't filled with lava. And you figured out how to combine a grilled cheese sandwich with a Pizza Hut pizza. Surely interstellar travel will soon follow, and then I can finally get back home. Round. Round like home. The grilled cheese stuffed crust pizza, proof that no one out-pizzas the Hut.
Hello, my name is Chad Watkins. I'm the manager at Larry's Body Shop. We are a family-owned and operated business and have been serving the North Georgia area since 1978. We are located at 1216 Progress Road in LOJ, Georgia. Our shop specializes in collision repair and we work with all major insurance companies. Larry's Body Shop is ICAR Gold, the highest role of training recognized by the collision repair industry. It is estimated that only 10% of collision shops meet these standards. Our shop consists of state-of-the-art equipment such as laser measurement system, down-drive spray booth, spot and MIG welding equipment. All of our paints are mixed on site so that we can guarantee your paint to match every time. I know that having an accident can be a stressful event. We take pride in making sure our customers are satisfied with the repair of their vehicles. Our waiting area is clean and comfortable with free Wi-Fi and refreshing beverages. So if you're in an accident, stop by and see us at Larry's Body Shop.
North Georgia Diamond is your source for diamonds. Come on in to view the area's largest selection of fine jewelry at North Georgia Diamond. All repairs and designs are done on site by our jewelers. And North Georgia Diamond has the lowest prices on loose diamonds. You can also sell your gold, silver, and coins at North Georgia Diamond between Walmart and Lowe's in East LJ. Locally owned by Bill and Allison Craig, North Georgia Diamond is your source for diamonds in North Georgia.
What you gonna do with all that junk?
Hello, and we're back to the Katy Sissine Show. And if you weren't tuned in for the first segment, today's topic and this week's topic is the week of the whistleblowers. And right now we're talking about Edward Snowden. We just reviewed how he fled to Hong Kong to reveal the documents of classified information from the Stellar Wind program of the NSA. And upon reaching out for help to WikiLeaks, Julian Assange, founder of WikiLeaks, in I believe 2006, he decided to look for places where Snowden could seek asylum from the US government. And as you may or may not know, Julian Assange is actually confined to the Ecuadorian embassy in London. The latest news that I have is that he's still confined. I may or may not, I'm not 100% on this, but my research thus far shows that Julian Assange is confined in the Ecuadorian embassy in London, where he literally cannot go outside because of his founding of WikiLeaks, where people can report anonymous news in this database, which has become a big threat to intelligence agencies worldwide, because that means that there's an outlet in which their dissenters can expose their wrongdoings, which is not unconstitutional, but for some reason these whistleblowers are being labeled as criminals in the mainstream media and labeled as traitors. Now that's up to us to determine. I'm not saying it's one way or the other. I can't determine that on my own. It's up to all of us as the people to determine that. Now, in 2013, when Snowden escaped to Hong Kong, the people were protesting at the U.S. consulate in Hong Kong. The people were very passionate about it. And I'd like y'all to see a video and just check out about a minute and a half of these protests in Hong Kong and what these people had to say about the situation.
You His war is essentially one of security versus privacy and freedom, and that governments must draw a line of how far they could go. They can't claim national security as the umbrella excuse, the umbrella reason, and authoritarian governments can just do anything they want to in the cyberspace.
Yeah, I think Snowden absolutely did the right thing. He had insider knowledge of these surveillance programs, and I think at a great personal risk, he was willing to expose this to the world. I don't think he would benefit from this in any way.
Ultimately, it's hard to see how NSA spying can be justified legally or morally. So, despite my uncertainty overall, I'm pretty sure that that's wrong. So I guess that's why I'm here.
As you can see, people in Hong Kong were well informed of the situation that was going on, at least those that showed at the U.S. consulate to protest the U.S. wanting to hold Snowden accountable for espionage. And I would like to quote the woman in the video that spoke out. There were a couple American guys that spoke out against the issue of holding Snowden accountable for wrongs. But the woman who spoke out, she really struck a chord with me when she said that governments, she was referring to governments, can't claim national security as the umbrella excuse for infringing upon individuals' freedoms. Authoritarian governments, and then she went on to say authoritarian governments can do anything they want in cyberspace. And it's all about security versus privacy and freedom. But is the infringement upon one's privacy without a warrant with probable cause, which is stated in the Fourth Amendment, should that even be up for debate? I mean, why are we having to deal with this issue? Why are we having to protest? Why are we having to fight for our privacy and our freedom? This should already be granted to us. Have we allowed our government to become authoritarian? Have we allowed our government to use security as an umbrella excuse to invade our privacy? We have, in my opinion. Let's talk about Snowden's escape, how he got out of Hong Kong, because Hong Kong wasn't going to take action. They delayed the process of transferring him to the United States, and rightfully so, because I think the people at the consulate actually thought the U.S. was wrong in what the U.S. was doing, and they were just as surprised by the NSA as Snowden was. And so they wanted to stand up for Snowden. Although they won't admit it, although they'll blame it on a paperwork issue, as stated in the first segment of the show, they said that the Americans had sent over a document with Snowden's name, with Snowden's incorrect middle name. It was listed as James instead of Joseph, and that was the reason for the delayed paperwork. And that is a valid excuse. You can't hold somebody hostage if they're listed as the wrong name. Now, I don't know what kind of other information was sent over as far as Social Security, etc., which I'm sure was, but that's a valid excuse. Now, the U.S. and its representatives, and I'm referring to Michael Hayden, former head of the CIA and NSA, they said that Hong Kong was disrespecting the U.S. basically by not sending Snowden back to the U.S. and facilitating him being sent back to the U.S. and brought before a court. So WikiLeaks, meanwhile, while he was in Moscow, They were looking for places, and I'm referring to Assange, Julian Assange, where Snowden could seek asylum from U.S. government. And as I revealed in the last part of in the last segment, that destination was Moscow. So Snowden was actually accompanied in his escape from Hong Kong to Moscow by journalist or reporter for WikiLeaks, British reporter Sarah Harrison. And we've got a picture of Sarah Harrison we can show. Very nice looking young lady and very intelligent reporter for WikiLeaks. And Snowden even called her a ninja that helped him escape from Hong Kong. I suppose that she's a very clever woman, and she and Snowden had to go through a lot together in order to attain the asylum that he has now, the temporary asylum he has in Hong Kong. So Snowden and Harrison illegally left Hong Kong together, technically illegally. Snowden bought a ticket to India, so in order to hide their operations and their escape flights from the FBI and the CIA and the NSA and all U.S. intelligence, Snowden decided to divert them, and in order to do that, with hopes to do that, he bought a ticket to India on his credit card for 2 days after the actual asylum flight was to take place out of Hong Kong to Moscow. And WikiLeaks, as stated by Julian Assange, founder of WikiLeaks, bought over a dozen tickets out of Hong Kong in Snowden's name in order to do the same thing to hinder the U.S. from locating Snowden and Harrison. His destination, Moscow. And we have a beautiful background of Moscow right there. At the Moscow airport, when he and Harrison successfully arrived, and well, let's talk about how they left. They left the airport at Hong Kong, and the U.S. had failed to cancel Snowden's passport. Now, British citizen Sarah Harrison, that wasn't an issue for her. Her passport was good to go. But the U.S. failed to cancel Snowden's passport, so he was able to technically, legally leave Hong Kong and go to Moscow. But by the time he got to Moscow, they caught on, but we'll get to that later. At the Moscow airport, when they arrived successfully, Snowden could not receive another boarding pass to Cuba due to U.S.'s cancellation of his passport. He was to go from Hong Kong to Moscow to Cuba at this point. So he did not board the plane to Cuba. The former CIA plane, and U.S. prisoner transportation plane was actually awaiting Snowden to transport him as a fugitive back to the U.S. to be held accountable. Snowden was, however, in jurisdictions of Russia, and Snowden thought this was ironic that the U.S. would try to interfere with him while in Moscow because the jurisdictions of Russia, as Snowden said, were not particularly friendly with the U.S. But Vladimir Putin did publicly refuse Snowden's entry into Russia. Russian authorities, however, and this is all, it's all over the place, but Russian authorities, however, secretly offered Snowden a deal. He could leave the airport in exchange for working with a Russian intelligence agency, the FSB. Harrison claims that she knows that Snowden did not give any information while held by the FSB. And while held by the FSB, Snowden and Harrison were stuck in cruel and unusual conditions. In my opinion, they were stuck in an airport transit zone in one room with no windows for about a month, even without a shower. Snowden's dad was, during this time, contacted by the FBI, and Snowden's family has a history of military background. All of his, many of his predecessors have served in the military, and they're a very well-informed family when it comes to government and politics. So Snowden's dad, our government, was contacted, his dad was contacted by the FBI and was asked to travel to Moscow to meet with his son, probably to get some details out of his son that maybe the FSB wasn't able to get. there was a popular support through Snowden throughout Western Europe, not only at the consulate in Hong Kong where people protesting, but people everywhere were protesting, believing Snowden deserved protection and not imprisonment for his act of whistleblowing. Snowden filed for application for asylum in 21 different Western European democracies, but everyone denied him because who was the European Union under? They're under the US. So if the US wasn't going to allow it, neither was Europe. What Snowden needed was a country that was willing to stand up to the US, who didn't feel like they owed so much to the US to listen to its every order. Poland was the first to deny Snowden's asylum, and then France, then Italy refused to respond, and that's according to Snowden. But there was one man, Presidente Evo Morales of Bolivia, who openly offered asylum to Snowden. We've got a picture of Evo Morales. Venezuela and Bolivia offered him asylum, but transportation there was not possible due to Europe's refusal under the jurisdiction of US to help Snowden escape. And there's Presidente Evo Morales. President Evo Morales, he did not arrive in Moscow for the sake of Edward Snowden. He arrived in Moscow to discuss the summit of gas exporting countries and expressed that he offers Snowden asylum in Bolivia publicly as a surprise before leaving Moscow. Now, this was a great patriotic act by Evo Morales, and we'll get back to that in the next segment and continue on to what's going on with Snowden now and what politicians think of him. Thank you for tuning in to the Katy Sissine Show. Stay tuned in for more on Edward Snowden in segment 2, and please follow me at Katy FYNTV.